Hey team, welcome back to another incredible episode of the Intentional Agribusiness Leader podcast. This is your host, Mark Jewell, and I am joined today by Grant Fitzgerald, and I'm excited to dive into this. We're going to talk about land, I think, probably at some point today, because that's the business he's into. He's a SVP, Senior Vice President with Farmers National. He's out of the Omaha, Nebraska area, a Nebraska native, a Husker, and through and through. Got a non-traditional ag story to share, I think, with us once we get into it. And I'm excited for some of you guys to hear that because it's encouraging for guys like me who are also non-traditional ag kids. Welcome to the show, Grant. Glad to have you on.
Thank you very much. I'm excited to be here.
Yeah, man. Let's get into it. You get the same opening question everybody gets. What does it mean for you to be intentional?
So this is actually something we hired an individual, and you might call him a mentor of mine, actually about 2 years ago. And he really started helping us to be intentional. And one thing that he likes to say that I try to live by is win in spite of X. Like we always have something that might be in our way, some sort of road block or speed bump or something. And how are we going to get past that, right? And how are we going to push ourselves to get past that? For me personally, I think it's passion. I think you have to have passion. You have to love what you're doing, and you have to push yourself a little bit, right? And for me, I think, and the teams that I work with, you got to have the right people, the right vision, and passion to fuel that. And that to me is being intentional. It's being proactive and just giving it a little bit extra than maybe you're comfortable with.
Yeah, you got to do it like you mean it.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, do it like you mean it. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. So I'm curious because I like that saying, win in spite of X, right? Or regardless of X. So what does that mean for you? What's an X that you've had to overcome and win despite?
Yeah, I think one that our business feels a lot is we're obviously extremely busy. We're managing land. We are selling land, and our days are jam packed, right? But we have to have a growth mindset. We have to continue growing. I think with the generational shift, there's just when people pass away, a lot of times the farms sell, which is a threat to our management business and our ongoing management contracts. So growing and replacing them is something you have to do. And it's not always that fun to go in and be comfortable on a cold call or a sales call or selling yourself, right? And I think it's easy when you are out and maybe you've had a long day of visiting farms, and the X for me is you're tired, you got a lot of other things going on, you maybe have some personal stuff. And for me, it was going and stopping and having a visit, right? Like you're in these small towns and stopping in and talking to the ag lender and having that networking and communication. I would say the X is just, a large workload, and you don't feel like you can give a little bit more to continue building your brand and having that growth mindset.
Yeah, I love it. Super good, man. Before we get into the full introduction, just give us a little bit of background, because you're in an area that everybody is familiar with and I think passionate about, because everybody's passionate about the land and has an interest in the land. We know that there are threats to the land and things that maybe folks could be doing better or differently to protect their land, whether that's environmentally or farming practices or in like family planning, right?
Yeah.
And estate planning and things like that. So what's something that maybe we should be thinking about that we're not thinking about as it pertains to agricultural land?
Yeah, I think there's a shift going on right now that I've seen within our business as well as the industry. What we do is we obviously provide professional farmland management across the U.S., right? So most of our clients are absentee. They live 100 miles and further away from the property. They're probably 60 plus years old, because when do you inherit a farm? Usually when your parents die, and hopefully parents are living to 80, 90, 100. So that's our clientele right now. The generation that we work for is, and we're a fiduciary of, I kind of call the legacy generation. They probably grew up on the farm, or their parents did. They know the story of the old oak tree in the pasture, right? They have connection to that area. The generation inheriting the farms now, or even furthering their investments, ag is turning into an asset class, and that generation, that wants immediate gratification, and it's just changing right now. What the service they need, or maybe is a little bit less than the full scope. They maybe want to be involved in it, or they're in a practice or a business that might be accounting or something like that. And so they can bring something to the manager of the farm, but they need those boots on the ground,
Mm-hmm.
which is what we're providing. So there's definitely a shift right now, I think, in the service
Yeah.
levels being provided and needed in the future, because I just think it's changing more into ROI. And
Mm-hmm.
what does that asset bring
Mm-hmm.
into the bottom line of maybe a total portfolio or an expanding portfolio?
Yeah. Is there a breakdown or some knowledge that you have if we were to take a swath of land like eastern Nebraska or northeast Nebraska or something like that? What percentage is actually actively managed by somebody actively farming it versus managed by a company such as yourselves?
Yeah, it's actually pretty small, which
Mm-hmm.
is good for the business, I think, because our business is a little bit different than selling products or widgets. Some
Yeah.
of that stuff is hyper aggressive and intense, right, and competitive.
Mm-hmm.
For us, we definitely have competition with other companies. We have a lot of great competitors, but it's usually someone new to the space, right? Like maybe you
Mm-hmm.
don't need farm management all the time. You don't need to
Yeah.
sell your farm constantly, right? Like some of those things only
Right.
happen here and there, and so that's nice for a competition piece. Again, we're pretty competitive, but um, yeah, I think that's kind of changing. There's 60+% of land is owned by non-operating landowners, and
Mm-hmm.
in the Midwest, that is. So there's a lot of opportunity out there, but a lot of those non-operating landowners maybe live on the farm or pretty close to the farm. They just maybe have a day job, like say
Yeah.
I do, right? And but you can still manage those things, and our business is really focused currently around the absentee, where they don't even live by it. So us
Yeah.
being local to it has a ton of value.
Sure. Yep. Makes sense. Very cool. It's an interesting role. I think it is an interesting thing to start to think about land or agricultural land as an asset class, maybe for some who haven't thought about it that way.
Yeah, yeah,
You see a lot more trends in the like the popular social media trends of people wanting to go be homesteaders and things like that, which I chuckle at because I like to say we were homesteading before homesteading was cool. We called it surviving. In the
that's right.
1980s, it was called survival, and now
That's
it's
right.
now it's flashy and trendy, and I think people find it to be far harder than they anticipated when they first get into it. But it looks good on social media, so I think. But a lot of people think about it that way rather than like something in your something in your investment portfolio.
Yeah,
You know,
it's actually,
so
I think people overlook it. The cash yield of a farm, cash rent on the value is several percent, right? 1.5, 2, 3, 3.5, depending on where you're at and what year it is. But actually, the appreciation of the farm, people kind of forget about sometimes. And when you add that
mhm,
back in, it's as good as any investment, right? I mean, when you add in the
sure,
appreciation plus, what you might call a dividend, I mean,
yeah,
you're talking 6, 7, 10%. I mean, we had a couple years ago, it was 20%. And
wow,
it's pretty cool to compare to, stock market and other things over
yeah.
time.
What's the mentality you're seeing right now? Because obviously this is a little bit different year in ag than maybe we've had for the last decade or so. We're facing, even in our business, being impacted by a lack of positivity, not sure like where our dollar is going to get invested, spent, lots of volatility on the input side. So what are you guys seeing in your conversations with landowners and growers and farm managers and things like that?
Yeah. We're still kind of trailing after 2024. 2024 was an extremely difficult year. And in fact, I think,
Mm-hmm.
Farm Journal, in one of my presentations, I cited them calling it, the worst financial farm year since 2007. We had a lot of, high inputs based on $6 corn, and most of the corn got sold for sub four, right? In a lot of situations, depending what your cash price was. And that eroded a lot of equity in operations. There was a lot of rollover debt on line of credits. There's higher interest on that rollover and all of the debt. And then now with Iran and everything going on, fertilizer is, you know, 30%, 40% higher than it was, a month ago. And it's adding additional stress. The government programs have come in a big way, but, you know, a farmer doesn't really want to use those, right? Like we rather just make money and have more
Right,
grain to
right.
sell at a higher amount. Um,
Yeah.
it's appreciated obviously, and it fills kind of that profit gap.
Hmm.
But it creates a lot of stress. And I think farmers overall are still eternal optimists, right? Like it's always going to be better next year. Like let's just get through this year. But it's hard to get through that current year when soybeans in most situations are in a losing
Yep.
scenario, and corn's
Yep.
maybe in break even. So there's just not a
Hmm.
lot of profit out there right now. We have a relationship with the Kansas City Fed Board, and some of their economists come up and talk to us, and they said the rollover debt this year is high as I've ever seen it on line of credits,
Hmm.
and it's definitely something to be aware of and concerned about.
Sure. Very good. Well, man, let's learn a little bit more about you and Farmers National. Man. I mean, how do you go from where you started? Give us a little background to being the senior vice president of a company like Farmers National, well respected.
Yeah, thank you. So you mentioned it. I'm a Nebraska native, born and raised. I live 3 miles away from where I grew up, out in the country, non-traditional, as you also mentioned. My dad's an electrician,
Hmm. Yeah.
and my mom managed a floral shop. Both of them actually retired last year. They're pretty excited, and they've had great careers, but it wasn't in ag. That didn't
Hmm.
keep me from falling in love with it at a small age, and riding my bike down to the neighbor's house and jumping up on his combine or his tractor fender, and probably annoying the crap out of him all day. And I fell in love with it, and I did that all through high school. I didn't play football. I ran grain truck. In college, I had my schedule to 2 or 3 days a week jammed up, so I could go back to the farm, which was 45 minutes north of Lincoln, where I went to school at University of Nebraska, where I got my ag business degree. And I worked 40 hours a week. I was scooping corn. I rented my first farm, bought one after that, and it's just doing what I could until I found farm management. And I was really fortunate to find farm management and Farmers National almost about the same time, and fell in love with the industry, fell in love with connecting farmers to landowners. I think,
Hmm.
as you mentioned, farm management is pretty niche, right? Like ag is primarily grower focused, farmer focused, and
Yeah.
our side of the transaction is all around being a fiduciary to the landowner, and I think that's pretty fun. It's different, and it's pretty cool. I like that side of it. Managed farms for 6 years. Absolutely loved it, but just wanted more out of my career and wanted more for the industry and Farmers National Company, and challenged myself on my dad's kind of, well, go do it then, kind of mentality, and that he's coached me up on. And I spent coming up on 7 years now in our office. I've done client relations. I've done operations, so like the tech side of the business, and helping
Hmm.
lead our, get our client portal out to our clients and things of that nature. I was a regional vice president, so leading half of our team in the western side of the U.S. And since last summer, I've been our senior vice president, so overseeing our farm management business that spans 2 million acres, overseeing our insurance business as well as our forestry business. So it's
Oh
been uh,
wow.
it's been
Fantastic.
good. We just had our annual conference actually 2 weeks ago, and that was the first time for me to stand on stage and be the senior vice president. It was a fulfilling moment for me, but also a moment of hey, let's go get to work, right? Like all the fun stuff's
Hmm.
over, and it's time to get my vision moving. So
Right. One thing to want the role, and then another thing to now enact your vision through the role.
exactly, exactly. That's where I'm
Yeah.
at.
How many people work at Farmers National? Like, what's the
Yeah.
breadth?
W-2'd full-time employees, employee owners. Actually, we are employee owned, and just
Yeah.
celebrated 25 years as employee owned last year.
Oh wow.
Um,
Cool.
we've been in business for 96 years. We have about 300 employees, and then we have another 100 to 120 contractors. So there's just over
Sure.
400 individuals who wear the Farmers National Company badge.
Wow.
And
Cool.
um, I'm in the Omaha office. We have about 90 individuals who work in our, it's a lot of our support staff. And
Yep.
then our business primarily is farm management, obviously, and our team they're local, so they are
Mm.
home office primarily. They live, work,
Yep.
raise their children in small town USA, and spanning from Texas, North Dakota, all the way out east, and like I mentioned, 30 states.
Wow. It's a big area, big stretch, big span across all those different states. So talk to
It
us a
is.
little bit about, like, I mean, what is what's the breadth and depth of what you guys get into? Like, what is, for those of us that are maybe less familiar with farm management or just haven't, encountered it. I mean, what would that all entail? I'm not even going to try to set the context. I'll just let you define it.
Yeah, absolutely. So, one, I will say, I call us a landowner services company. So,
Mm-hmm.
we built our business on, farm management and real estate and insurance quickly after that, in the 20s. And we're about to celebrate 100 years here coming up in
Wow.
2029.
Exciting.
Yeah. We have a lot of complementary business lines. We are the largest energy, privately held energy manager in the nation, mineral
Hmm.
management. So that's in Tulsa. We have a ranch management. We have a hunting lease network. We have insurance. We do ag stock trading. We have appraisal. So pretty much anything above or below the land that a landowner needs, we can handle. When I look at farm management in particular, we do the daily management of the farm. So if you're cash rent, obviously we do all the negotiation and securing that lease, paying the real estate taxes, any projects that might be on the farm, and doing year-end reporting. So you can give a year-end packet straight away to your CPA. We have formal reporting throughout the year, so we do inspections of the property, making sure that it's being cared for by that farmland tenant. The other half of our business is where the owners actually are participating in the production of the grain. So they have a crop share lease or maybe a full direct operation or custom operation where they're actually producing that grain. So we are selecting the seed, the fertilizer, we're doing all the FSA paperwork, the crop insurance paperwork. We're doing irrigation scheduling if it's an irrigation country. We're doing tile projects, right? If you're in Iowa where it rains, different
Mm-hmm.
from where I'm staying in Nebraska. And we have clients that they want us to text them every time it rains. And we have clients who want us to talk to them once a year at the end of the year and tell them what the performance was and send them money. And that's up to them. And we'll
Mm-hmm.
manage to their goals. We'll manage their communication styles. And, we essentially will do everything needed on that property throughout the year and probably a little bit more too. So
Fascinating. Yeah.
we recently did a client survey, and one of our clients, I love this, said, Farmers National Company does everything on my farm except guarantee it's going to rain. So I thought
If
that was
only,
pretty
is
good.
that in R&D
You're
for
right,
farmers?
right. Yeah, that's in R&D. Yeah, yeah. Mother Nature's
Yeah.
coming in next week to talk about that.
Yeah, I love it. I love it. So, it's really interesting though, because your story is that, you grew up non-traditional, not necessarily on a farm, but growing up rural, fell in love with it, like worked your way into it. And, and now you're managing, one of, if not the largest, entity that just manages all this farmland across the United States. And, congratulations. I mean, that's really incredible.
Thank you. It's a dream come true. When I got this job, honestly, I was prepared to be a farm manager for my entire 40-year career.
Mm-hmm.
And in that first year, I don't know, I hit a different gear and really wanted to chase leadership. And I feel pretty blessed to be here at a young age,
Yeah.
too, which has some of its own challenges, but it's been good for me.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm pretty excited about the runway that I personally have as well as our company has going forward. So
For sure. Big time. Okay, so what are you finding the most challenging about being in a leadership role? You've got what, maybe like 150 people reporting to you or something like that, or that you're directly responsible for. So there's some weight there. 13 years into your career. So what's the biggest challenge?
the biggest challenge for me has been reinventing myself, I would say. I'm a people
Interesting.
person for sure.
Yeah.
I love people. I love communication, conversation. My wife jokes I'm the weirdo that, goes at a party to the people I don't know, right? And then she doesn't see me for a couple hours because I'm running around just networking. I love people. I want people to think highly of me. I want them to feel like I support them. And leadership can be a lonely place.
Mm-hmm.
It can be a lonely place, and it's a place that you can be maybe a little vulnerable if you're really going out there and saying where you think we should move. And you got to have some tough conversations.
Mm-hmm.
I try not to call them difficult. I try to call them awkward because I don't know if they're that hard. They just don't feel good, right? Sometimes to have
Yeah.
some
Yeah.
conversations like that. And that was a hard thing for me to do. A mentor of mine gave me advice 5-6 years ago when I first started leading my first team and said, Grant, you have to separate the professionalism from the personal. You can still be friends outside of work, and you can still win
Mm-hmm.
together. And one thing that she said, and I've gotten in some other leadership training, was saying something like, that's a bad idea, but let's still go to lunch, right? Or I don't agree with you, but let's still go to happy hour together. Basically saying, we can disagree, but
Mm-hmm.
we can still be friends essentially, right? Like we can still get along. And that was kind of a challenge for me for a little while. I think I was probably reserved a little bit when I first got
Mm-hmm.
into leadership about really saying what I think or really saying where I think we should go, because I was worried about what people might think. And that still is in the back of a person's mind. I would say
Yeah.
reinventing myself and really pushing myself to say what I think and say where I need to go, because I do believe in my vision and
Mm-hmm.
for this company, for this industry. And I think it's owning it, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. You hit on something really poignant there, which is that it's okay to disagree, but still be friends,
Yeah.
right? Or still
Yeah.
at least be cordial.
Yes,
And
that's right.
it seems like it's getting harder in the world for that to be true.
It
You
is.
know, we just continue, whether it's the media, whether it's social media, whether it's, I don't know, whatever, with something in the air, but we just seem to be like pitting ourselves. There's two very clear ways to think, basically, right? And if you're not thinking like I think, then we don't get to commune. But that is not how I was raised. I will tell you that much. Like, that's we grew up, actively, like, in fact, we had debate. Like, we
Yeah.
had like debate club, and like and we were taught to debate, and we
Right.
could we could believe different things, at the end of the day. Like, the worst thing in my town was, like, if you were Catholic or Lutheran. I mean, that was the big debate, right? Or Christian or non-Christian, and that was the big. But even if you were not in the same camp as the other person, you still played together on the playground. We found a way to get along. And man, if I could pray for one thing for our nation right now, it would be that we could erase some of the division that is happening. And I personally believe a lot of it is manufactured, and it's not really how people are, but it seems to be what's happening.
I think there's this odd expectation or assumption. I kind of call it the 0 to 100 rule.
Mm-hmm.
Like you can't be in the middle anymore. Like if you say one thing or maybe post one thing on social media or something, all of a sudden you're on one end of the spectrum. Like you can't. And I think that's the challenge in some meetings or some organizations. It's like, hey, maybe if we do this, then all of a sudden it's just, well, this must be the direction we're going, right? And then
Mm-hmm.
it's like a drastic pull the other direction, which creates some animosity and it makes some of that let's go to lunch a little more challenging.
Yeah, yeah, it really does. And to me, that's one of the really important things about intentional leadership. We create this show to just get the conversation about intentional leadership into the earbuds and truck speakers of leaders across the ag industry. And we
Yeah.
do that through just like through having conversations with people like you, because it's an interesting story, right? Here's Grant's story, and these are some challenges that he faces in leadership, and this is what his company does. And I just think that stories are interesting. So I get to come on here and a couple times a week record a story with somebody, and we get to share that with a few thousand people that listen to the show every month.
Yeah.
And that's great. And my hope, though, is for those of you listening, is that you're picking up what we're laying down a little bit. There's a message underneath the message here. It's not just about the stories. It's about actually
Right.
taking the time to sit down and get to know somebody, hear what they think, agree or disagree, doesn't matter. At least you're hearing, right? And by the way, like, your ideas ought to be challenged.
Hmm.
Like, ideas that are not challenged are weak.
Yep. That's right.
They're weak
I
and they're
agree.
unproven, and the market will have its way with them eventually. So,
Yeah.
if I've learned anything in my career, it definitely is that the market will have its way with your ideas. And I've had some good ideas that have succeeded, and I've had some bad ideas that have failed, fell flat on their face. And that's
Yep.
that's part of it.
Yep.
So good, man. What are you loving about leading this team right now?
Yeah, we've done a lot of work in the last 2 years. We've invested a lot into coaching, like I mentioned about hiring
Mm-hmm.
Mike, and we've even hired some consultants. We're doing surveys and things of employees. We're really trying to figure out and develop a team that we can all win together, right? Employee ownership helps that, but I think there's also got to be some other factors, and I think it has to be continuous as well. Like, you can't have a coaching session and then just not do it for another year or 6 months. You have to continually keep feeding that, and that's a lot of work. It's a lot of work, and people like it though. I think we've had a lot of great response. We made some tough decisions. We've parted from some individuals. We've hired several new. We're looking for a different level of talent at this point, and we're looking for relationship building, right? And we're looking for passion. And one thing that we challenge ourselves, the leadership team, when we're doing final interviews is, that person is able to do the job, but are they willing? And that goes back to the passion. Do they really want to get up every morning and do this job and have this be their career? And I think you find those people. I think you can teach them ag, you can teach them other things, you can hone the craft, but you have to have the right person in the right place.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. What was the motivation for deciding to do coaching within your organization? Are you doing that third party, or are you learning third party and then deploying internally?
We have a third party that's doing basically culture and exercises and really really specific things, like a leadership series essentially for all employees. We also are rolling out basically situational leadership, right? Like, you might have somebody who is terrific at managing a farm, but maybe not great at selling a farm or doing some reporting aspects or something like that. And so you might have somebody who's great at 3 of those things, but there's still a gap. I have gaps, right? Like, we all have something that we can improve. And then we also need leaders who are flexible, that can see that difference. My wife calls me a chameleon, which I didn't know what she was getting at there, but she says, you kind of mold yourself for the situation and for the person you're talking to. And I think you have to do that in leadership. You have to meet the person where they're comfortable to get the most out of them, and to get them in a place where they feel, that they can develop themselves or receive feedback. And I think that's on the leader to do that. So we've been coaching our leaders with that. Again, that's kind of going through Mike, where we've got him essentially trained up. He's done all the stuff needed to be able to be an internal coach. And then, we lean on, really anybody willing to help us, and whether it's internal or external.
Love it. Yeah, it's so good. One of the things that you're sort of alluding to, we actually teach this in our Momentum 360 program, which is one of the factors that leaders need. And the first factor is what's called the attractor factor.
Yeah. Okay.
And the attractor factor is it's because leadership is magnetic, right? And magnets always have a positive end, they have a negative end. There's 2 ends that you put together that stick together and 2 that repel, right? And so you're going to, when you have the magnetism, when you have the attractor factor dialed in, and you know who you are and you know who you're not, and you know what you stand for and you know what you don't stand for, and you know what your goals are, and you know what they're not, and you know what to say yes to and you know what to say no to. Naturally, you're actually going to lose people who don't identify with that anymore. They get repelled. Okay. But the attractor factor brings the people. and I can cite one instance. We actually had this gentleman on the show, Josh Shaver from Logan Ag down in Illinois. They established their attractor factor. They started, leveling up, deciding who they were, who they weren't. They made a significant investment in their culture, very big for an independent retailer of their size at the time. But it brought them 4 people, and with those 4 people, like these 4 people left the competitor in their local community and came to them and brought almost 20,000 units of seed with them.
Wow.
So your attractor factor can be very profitable.
Yes, it can.
So it's, when you're talking about like, hey, what's the cost for coaching? It's like, I don't care. Send me the invoice, right? Because it's less than the 10 million that he made from that deal. In the first year, and now we're 3 years into it, right? So now we're in the 30, getting closer to 40. Then on top of that, those guys started selling not just the seed, but now they started adding crop inputs into some of those farms as well. And they went from 300,000 acres of 300,000 acres in the area where those individuals live, from what they were serving before this. Now they're up to 900,000 acres just after a couple of years.
Wow.
It's a wild, investments in your culture matter.
They do.
Mhm.
Yeah, they do, and as do recruiting. And in fact, yesterday we had a gentleman here that we tried to get on board a couple of years ago, and he decided not to come on at that point. And he was here yesterday for an interview, and he's like, "I want to be here so bad. I've paid attention to you guys the last 3 years. You guys have drastically improved your
Oh,
culture. I can sense it in social media. I can sense it from talking to your team members.
come on.
Which is cool. And actually, this is pretty sweet. A month ago, we hired an individual, and pretty excited about the hire, obviously feeling good about it. And then another person called and said, "Hey, I just heard you hired so and so, right?" And
Yeah.
I said, "Yeah." And he said, "I don't even really know what you guys do, but I want to work for you. If that guy wants to work for you, so do I. He is the best leader that I've ever worked with, and give me an application. Like, I want to come work for you guys." And
Dang.
that's pretty awesome. I think that speaks volumes about what we're building here.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, when that's now you're developing a flywheel, a talent
Yep.
flywheel, which is
Yep.
fantastic. Good for you guys. Okay, man. Well, I hate to have to bring it in for landing, but we do because I'm back to back with my next interview. But Grant, I really appreciate you doing the show, coming on here. Last question I've got for you before we land it is what book or resource has been super valuable to you in the development over the last decade and a half?
I'm a big Simon Sinek fan, but the book I
Okay.
like the most that I read recently, actually, and going this transition is The First 90 Days. And
Okay.
it's talks a lot. I don't know if you know it or not, but it talks a lot about
I've heard about it.
learning
Yeah.
fast, setting expectations and reinventing yourself. Like I mentioned, right? Like you
Mhm.
can't be the old you anymore. Like that old job is gone. You need to reinvent yourself. You need to be another level. You need to have a vision that everybody can buy into. You need to do business, performance planning, and set clear expectations. And it was really powerful for me. I think if you're changing a job, if you obviously if you got promoted, if you're going to a different location,
Yep.
it's a really strong read.
Love it. Great recommendation. The first 90 days. So what we do with all the recommendations that we get on the show, Grant, is we take them and we put them in our resource library in an AI driven performance management tool that we created called Jericho.
Oh,
And
cool.
so one of the things that Jericho does is it helps write playbooks for individuals, and everybody can go get their first one for like totally complimentary. It's at askjericho.com/try. So you can go over there, Phil, just have a little conversation with the intake form, and we built it to be very conversational. So it's very much about you because every playbook is absolutely custom to the person. So if you think about growth plans historically, I mean they're poorly done once a year, maybe.
Yep.
And so we solve for that, and now every single one is custom, and it updates continuously as you grow with the system. So very cool. So the books that we get are in the resource library, and if that book matches up with a capability that you're personally working on, it makes the recommendation automatically for you, and it just shows up in your email inbox every day at 6 a.m. So
Wow. Awesome.
it's 10 out of 10 recommend. Go over there, try it out, totally free. Askjericho.com/try. Grant, super cool to have you on. I'm grateful for the new relationship. I look forward to hopefully getting to meet in person at one of these ag shows or sometime when we're in Omaha. And thanks for being on.
Thank you very much. It was a pleasure.